Okay, hello everybody. I'm very happy to start this conference with Aarhus and Hamburg artists and organizations from both cities. And this is a great moment for us because it is the first time for us to be in connection with Aarhus. And we have had some conversations before, and we decided to record this conference on Zoom. We handed in some videos, we will watch it together, and later we have a discussion with all participants. And yeah, I'm very happy to have now the first video from Anne Könke. She is from the Ministry of Culture, and she sent us a very friendly introduction to this conference.
Dear artists, dear partners, what an unreal and unfortunately difficult time we have since a couple of months. We have been fighting the pandemic for almost a year now, and it hit culture extremely hard. Many events had to be cancelled, have been postponed, and are still being postponed. And the German-Danish cultural friendship year also turned out a little differently than we had planned and hoped. When we celebrated the start of this year of friendship in January last year, when we also signed the letter of intent between Aarhus and Hamburg, the world was still okay. Everyone was full of expectations and ready for action. However, and this is what I really respect, many of the projects have been changed to digital versions. And you too faced the challenges and completely restructured your original concept so that we can today look forward to a digital conference. You exchanged ideas for many months, and I can imagine that you have surely reached your limits at one point or another. What could the new we look like? Originally, the focus was an exchange, a meeting of the artists of the two cities, Aarhus and Hamburg, at the same time. In addition, also a meeting of art and the neighborhood on the Veddel. At the same time, it should have been about the shared passion of different groups of people on the Veddel. The living and working conditions for art and artists are revealed on both cities and should have been taken into account. The aim was to reflect on the importance of art in the cultural, social, and political infrastructure of urban discourse. Projects from Hamburg, from Aarhus should have met projects from Hamburg in real in order to experience the similarity and relationship of the approaches of the other and their particular differences. In the current situation of the global pandemic, you have been forced to try another path, to use the public space in a way that go beyond physical contact. Nevertheless, I'm convinced that you have all set the first course through your exchange and that your project will encourage different people to talk to each other. I really would like to thank all of you very much for your efforts, your hard work, and I hope you will enjoy the conference. Goodbye.
Yes, thank you, Anne. Okay, so maybe we can now start with the introduction of each one of you. Oh, and so maybe we start with the people in Aarhus. Who wants to start? Kim?
Yes, I can. I'm from we as Asger and Benjamin as well, and actually it's mostly Benjamin who's been working on the pieces and on the video. But the exhibition space is situated in an old gas factory in Aarhus, and we've been working with transforming a space we have had in this old factory area for a little more than 22 years now. And right now we're in a transformation because the whole area is starting to be gentrified. I think that's the word. So the building we are in now is going to be destroyed. So we are getting a new place, and the whole area is being a huge office area. So we're trying to, where we have started, we have worked site specific with this space. It's like a room. Now we are like taking it, but you invert the process. So now we are trying to start working site-specific in the city space that is growing out of this transformation that's coming now. And so everything is very new, and when you see the video, it's also more like a linen or an empty space for new buildings and new art. And right now we're just working on some kind of registration, so we like have a lot of materials to use for reports and works further on. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Aysha, maybe you want to say just briefly.
Yeah, my name is Aysha, and I'm representing Andromeda, I would say today, which is the organization that that I was part of co-initiating back in 2016. And we sent in a video today, for today, and then we also have the poster, the postcard for later on. But we the video is it's without sound. You can only hear like the clicking of it. We do love ASMR quite a lot, or we have growing to love it quite a lot. But yeah, Andromeda is it started as very grassroots, and it started very just like extremely organic. We were a bunch of friends. We were like, we need a space in Gellerup, the neighborhood that we were born and raised in, that we can relate to fully, and we know is neither the municipal, neither the housing association, or a private investor or anything like that. So we wanted to try out like what happens if we, the people who are always being talked about or always being considered for in a political agenda, if we actually take charge of the narratives or charge of like what the agenda, the creative, the artistic agendas is going to be. And we've been doing quite a lot of things since 2017. We have always been in buildings that are like doomed to demolishment. And Gellerup is a housing area in Aarhus that has going through like, I think around almost over 10 years of renovation due to a state-run called Ghetto List in Denmark, where they are like calling neighborhoods out from criteria to be on this list. And if you're on the list, you're going to go through demolishment and so on. So it's a very politically loaded area, and there's a lot of different kinds of people. I think the video is very simple, but also very direct. And as most of our works, we don't always serve everything. So we're like, this is the fragments and some nuances, and then you can do with it what you want, or we can talk about it or something like that. So I hope that's like the thing for the video. Good. We'll start something.
Hello. Well, my name is Ditte Lyngkær Pedersen, and I'm an independent artist, and I do not represent a space from Aarhus, but I've had the privilege to visit HICP in Hamburg this summer, which was super interesting. And I'm right here now in my studio here in Aarhus, which is also where Kim is placed, I guess. But this is really nice studios that the city of Aarhus offers to artists for a period of 6 years. The video, so I am not sure if I really understood the concept right for this conference and project. So my contribution is an old video piece because I tried to record myself and that didn't really work out. So the video piece is a very old piece. It's 10 years old, but it's about public speaking in public and public space and art and pedagogy. It's 6 minutes, so maybe you can also choose to cut it if it's too long, Michael. That's up to the boss. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's go to Arnar, maybe.
Arnar Ómarsson. I'm an artist based in Aarhus, and I'm contributing with a little installation or sculpture and a video to the exhibition. And I also have this video, which is from another piece that I made last year for an online exhibition. And it's called Learn to Walk in a Forest, but Slowly. And this is the first part out of 3 that was put up in a sort of a virtual video installation. I'm here representing Institute for X, which is a culture, business, and educational platform in an old train station in the middle of Aarhus. It has been running since 2009. And has a lot of activity since then. Hundreds of people have gone through there, and a lot of organizations and groups and art collectives and all kinds of things happen, because it's based on sort of citizen initiatives and people sort of taking things into their own hands and creating their own projects, developing them into businesses or whatnot. There's a lot of art. I came in there as an artist in the beginning for a residency and started my own residency program as well. And this place has been going through a lot of changes throughout the years, starting out always under the threat of being evicted, and then gradually earning the respect and, let's say, the trust of the city. So now it is way more ingrained into the sort of the future of the city. It has been demolished, or more than half of it was demolished in 2018, I think, or early 2018. So now it is sort of a small utopia in the middle of construction sites that will then sort of rise up. But this place is really thriving, and it's really exciting. And the video that I'm showing you here is a video from their website that FIP Productions and TV Tonic made for Institute for X, and I sort of butchered it into like a 2-minute clip. So just sort of in terms of hopefully not offending the original authors of this video. But yeah, that's what you're gonna be looking at. It is in Danish, but it has English subtitles.
Thank you, Anna, Benjamin, and Sally. Maybe you can jump in with your short introduction and also with the work you show here in the window.
Yeah, also as Kim mentioned, yeah, I and me and Asger also represent Spaniard-Nidensee, and we decided to do a small installation in the window as a group, using a group subject that we have been using before at Spaniard-Nidensee as a medium to talk about the current development of the South Harbor area in Aarhus. And this group subject consists of me and Sally and Lina Ottosen, who is not present now but might join us later on. Yeah, it was very lucky that the group last year, the group subject Visionary Prospects Group only inherited Aarhus, but now as Sally has moved to Hamburg, we are actually making a connection. So we did together we did like the conceptualization for the installation, and then Lina and I did some graphics in Aarhus that we sent to Sally, and then you made like the decisions, and I'm very excited actually to see how it turned out, because I have yeah, I haven't seen it yet. So maybe you continue, Sally.
Yes, I forgot to take pictures after the installment, but I'm sure you will be able to see it somehow. Maybe Mikael can take a photograph. But just to say something about myself shortly, I live in Hamburg now, since I am on an exchange ship at the HFBK Art Academy. and I used to live in Aarhus and be in the art academy there. So I'm not representing an institution as such, but I have gathered experience from various exhibition places in the city of Aarhus, and hopefully as soon as the virus starts to loosen its grip on the world, I will also be able to get to know some of the places in Hamburg where artists are collaborating on various projects. And yeah, that's also why I'm here today. I'm very glad that I was invited yesterday to participate in this conference, and I'm excited to hear about all the places that will be represented today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was great to have you here yesterday for the installation. And yeah, maybe we go to Louise because she is also Danish one in Hamburg. Louise, please.
Hello, my name is Louise Nielsen. I've been living in Hamburg more or less since 2011. I studied at the Art Academy in Aarhus, and I was still studying there when I moved here because I was doing an exchange at the HFBK at the Art Academy here. And today I'm also representing Gängeviertel in Hamburg. I've been a part of the project called Gängeviertel since 2011 or 12. And what is Gängeviertel? I will show you a film which was made in like 2 years ago for the 10th birthday of Gängeviertel. In 2009, in August 2009, like a really big group of artists and activists moved into these 12 houses that were empty. They were going to be torn down. It's kind of in the middle of the city, like in the Neustadt, it's called. And it's like a small oasis of like really old historical buildings, which were actually like protected because it's like historical architecture. But still, like the investors who like were the owners of the buildings, they wanted to tear it down and build something new. But the really beautiful things happened that like around 200 people decided to move into these buildings. It was of course like through a lot of planning and they decided to make like what they called like a cultural appropriation of the buildings. It's kind of like squatting the houses, but like did it in a kind of different way. Also like inviting the people from the city government, inviting the press, and engaging a lot of people. And it's like an amazing, successful example of like how this kind of squatting a house, or what can happen when like a group of like really engaged people who are like dealing with the same kind of problems, like the problems of like finding affordable space in the cities, which are being more and more commercialized. The rents are so extremely high. So it's like, a really beautiful example of what can happen if people like organize and work together. And the video you will see, it's like, as I said, like a video which like takes you through like a lot of the different spaces in Gängeviertel and show you around. And it was made for the 10-year anniversary of Gängeviertel 2 years ago. I'm also showing a video of like just like impressions from my own work. It's like a little bit difficult to have like these two roles. Like I'm a sound and performance artist primarily, but I'm also working with film, mostly in like this performative way. I also enjoy working together with other people, inviting people to perform or to yeah, or in a way, it's kind of because what I'm dealing with in my my artistic praxis is like relations between human beings, but also like humans and technology, and like these really interesting things that happen between people and technology, but also like the fragility in the relations between humans and technology. So I hope you get a little bit of an impression to the video that I will show from my work. Yeah.
Thank you, Louise. And I think now we can go to the Hamburg friends here, like Julius and Finn. So please.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Finn. And Julius and I are here as part of a project called Das Archipel. It's a number of floating islands that are self-built, sort of DIY. And at the same time, it's a group and an open question also to what this group is, like growing at the same time as the space is growing. And yeah, Julius, you also want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hello, my name is Julius Lewy, and I have been around the project of Archipel forever, but not as a founding member like Finn was 6 years ago about. I've been fully dedicated for the last 3 years. Mainly I came from booking shows and organizing concerts and being a musician in Hamburg, Wilhelmsburg. And Finn and me, we have been producing a video on, we have tried to come to terms about what our project might have been about now that it has been forced to be on ice for the last 1.5 years. Whereas before we have been highly depending on the interaction between local communities and people who actually make the space alive. So we have worked on something like an approach to look at our project just as the two of us, but actually the project consists of, we don't know how many people. So it's like Finn said, it's a question, and we would like to share this question with you today.
And it's a question of we, and other than the, so I work as an artist as well. I'm also playing music. And I think in our case, the borders between what is the space, what is the project, what are the people, or what are the individual artists, these borders are very blurry, and we kind of threw it all into one bundle and made this video.
Thank you. So let's go to our friends from Hypercultural Passengers, and yeah, let's do ladies first. Heidi, please.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Heidi Salaverría. I am a philosopher and a cultural worker. And as in my video, I will talk a little bit about one of my main interests, which is the concept of aesthetic doubts or of unconstrained doubting. Let me maybe say one thing about another area I'm really interested in, which I think are, both of them are interwoven, which is the problem of violence. I think you could say that one thing which connects us as people is the capacity of being humiliated. And I think that the wish of a community or of a we includes the danger of violence. And I propose something I would call exercising anti-symbiosis. I think we need to think of concepts of connection anti-symbiotically, or maybe in other words, I think connection presupposes separateness, which might sound paradoxical, which it is, but I think we have to come to terms with being separate for then connecting. So maybe this could be something which might, you know, play along, or might be something for the discussions later as well.
Thank you, Heidi. So let's go to the discussion later. Interesting point. And Chrisdian, please.
Okay, hi, I'm Chrisdian, and also I am Ute. That's a kind of strange thing. Ute is an NGO that I founded 23 years ago, and Ute is dealing with projects and ideas which always have to do with disability, and you'll see in the video. But right now, I just feel more like being a hyper-cultural passenger, because I like that you see in the background, that's the fiddle. And for building up the exhibition and other things, I've been here quite a lot in the last weeks. And so I started to have a coffee place where I get coffee. And it's, as a stranger, because I don't live here, it's for me interesting to not become a part of the neighborhood, but be a more fluent guest. And that's what I just now experience, and I like it more and more. I have a special place where I like to drink my coffee, and I feel more used to walk around the neighborhood. And yeah, that's something that I really like, and it's really beautiful here. I hope everybody could come here when Ditte is how is it called? Nicking? No, moving her head like she liked it here too. And I think it's a great place to have guests, and I hope everybody who hasn't been here get the opportunity to come here.
Thank you, Chrisdian. Torsten.
My name is Torsten. I'm part of the organization Hypercultural Passengers, and yeah, my role is, yeah, one, I'm the treasurer. But on other hands, I'm also helping with doing many things here in the space. So, but this for this conference, I'm more presenting myself as an artist. So I'm a video artist, performer, and sculptor. And basically, I'm part of the exhibition with a poster, but I'm also, you will see a video later on for me. And I'm basically explaining a little bit with some examples of my work, what I'm doing. And basically, I'm trying, by role play, I'm trying to meet myself in different costumes and different actions and different settings of monitors and space and so on. Yeah, you will see in the video. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Torsten. And I think we had everybody. Sophia is not really in the conference today, but you will see later her video in the video reel. Yeah, maybe I can introduce myself. I'm an artist, but I started as a musician when I was 6 years old, and to become an artist was more or less an accident because there was not a real place for me to study. There was no place for learning rock drums or jazz drums in Germany at that time. So I went to the HFBK, to the Art Academy, and there I started writing. So I'm interesting, strange way to get to the art, and still I see myself always as a visitor in the art, so as a passenger. And I started this project with my friends here since 2013, and it's more or less now the main work or main thing to go forward in my life, and I'm really happy to be involved in international exchanges a lot. Okay, so what we do now is we jump into the videos. We will watch them in one flow, and because we have now the introduction already, and then we can edit the introduction to the videos if you like.
Kreativt, frit og fedt.
En kreativ frizone.
Jeg tror for mig, så er det vigtigste diversiteten.
Skabersted.
Mangfoldighed.
Det er et erhvervseksperiment.
Alle du møder hernede, de brænder for en idé.
Fandenivoldsk, uforudsigeligt og here to stay.
Det her det er Institut for X, som er en platform for iværksætteri og kreative startups, men også det, man kalder vækstlagskultur.
Hvad er det for musik, der?
Der er en teori, der hedder skumteorien. Det er sådan lidt, når der er energi i en boble, jamen, så giver det noget energi til boblen ved siden af. Og den her bobles form, jamen, den, ligesom i skum, jamen, så støder boblerne op mod hinanden, og så laver de til sammen den samlede form. Så det er noget med at give noget autonomi ind i hver enkelt projekt, i hver enkelt individ. Så det individ ligesom kan sådan boble op inde i sin egen boble, og sammen så bliver det til sådan et stykke skum. Men man kan godt zoome ind på hver boble, og så sige, hvordan ser den her boble præcis ud? Hvad er det for en energi, der er inde i den? Hvad er det for en økonomi, der er inde i den? Hvad er det for en viden, der er inde i den? Og så kan man prøve at forstå det hele. Men det er meget svært at forstå det hele. Det er nemmere at kigge på hver boble.
Jeg tror, at første gang jeg stiftede bekendtskab med X var tilbage i 2009 i forbindelse med kulturnatten. Der var hele området hernede, det var sådan set aflukket og sådan et wasteland. Og der ville Institut for X, de ville gerne bruge nogle af de midlertidige bygninger hernede. Og så tænkte vi dem sådan set ind i forhold til hele kommunens strategi om at lave en form for midlertidig byudvikling.
Vi er rigtig mange forskellige mennesker, som arbejder og bor på det samme sted. Og det er også det her med at stå sammen om noget større på tværs af holdninger og på tværs af værdier, og alligevel mødes omkring det og fokusere på sit håndværk og sit arbejde og sin frihed.
Scheint doch jetzt zitter vor Wut, denn ich sehe Flüchtlinge im Lager. Nur logisch, dass wir verzweifeln, die ganze Welt und die Geiseln. Uns interessieren nur die Preise, ohne Wenn und Aber. Vor eurer Haustür das Elend, nein, ihr habt keine Probleme. Nein, ihr vergießt keine Tränen, spürst du die Kälte? Und die Scheiße zieht mich so runter, shit, ich verkriech mich im Bunker. Pech, denn ich glaub nicht an... Ice Creamer, Ice Creamer, you Screamer, we all Screamer, Ice Creamer.
is Alex, and my 3 droogs. That is Pete, Georgie, and Dim. And we sat in the Korova milk bar trying to make up our razoo dogs what to do with the evening. The Korova milk bar sold Milk Plus Velicet, or Synthemesk, or Drencrum, which is what we were drinking. This would sharpen you up and make you ready for a bit of the old ultra-violence.
I am on different islands. I am rearranging spaces. I have chosen this of all places. I am building a bridge by pulling my hands. I am gathering scrape, wood and steel. Whatever is missing, I'll have to buy. I am an idiot and disturbance to some. I am delivering, so here I come. I am a ball, reminding me of shifting waters, rolling back and forth, invisibly touched. I am a plimsoll line. Are we water? Are we these islands? We are the dark that can be lit by a single spark. A single idea is enough to be put on course. We are the pointed chaos, an effort that seems to be orchestrated. Let me tell you that often it is not. It is the refusal to say what it is, knowing it would be the end of it. Demask the we, and it loses its power. It's a proclamation of something that is not. And the question about what it is has to be identified as a denial of the obvious. Asking that very question necessarily implies the inquirer is already a part of what is being asked about. Therefore, asking from within. Mostly we wonder where everyone else is. Until a silent command seems to mobilize every mind to join forces. It could be a word being said, a particular love being shared, a mutual perspective, and always faith. That being said, how can we remain faithful? How can we immunize our communities against assimilation once we establish them? And how could we ever leave? It is a monolith, blank and empty, an alien object to most passing by. Maybe it cannot live up to its narrative, and maybe it will remain a meaningful statement rather than ever provide a clear function. So it shall be an end in itself. In this sense, the invention of Das Archipel shall be the invention of the shipwreck.
My name is Heidi. I have been working for a while now with the concept of doubting, and I claim that aesthetic doubts, as I understand them, are practically inseparable from what you would describe as aesthetic judgments or aesthetic experience, with one modification, which is that the process of judging and experiencing art in the widest possible context includes a suspension of your beforehand as certain considered own positioning. So there is a destabilizing aspect in aesthetic processes, which I think are not only politically important but also a source of pleasure. This has to do with the second aspect I'm interested in this context, which is the notion of the critical common sense. I've been working on for some years as well. And it has to do with the fact that when you wonder how you would experience or judge something, so when you're aesthetically doubting, this usually is being accompanied by the wish of sharing that experience with others. Immanuel Kant spoke about Ansinnen, which means that this wanting to share your own experience with others is a request to others. It's a suggestion. It's a way of wooing others into your own experiences. Very different from an argument where you're trying to be the one who wins the argument. This doesn't have to do with winning or losing, because those kinds of aesthetic experiences, which I call aesthetic doubts, take place on the verge between the conceptual and the non-conceptual. So I'm very interested in this idea of sharing, wanting to share an experience, a position of doubting, unconstrained doubting, which I would differentiate from feelings of guilt or shame. Unconstrained doubting, which is empowering in that it opens new ways of seeing, experiencing things, and at the same time wanting to share that unsecure, yet unsecure stance with others. So you connect in your doubting connect people. I'm very interested into that.
Stop. Jeg holder det fucking ikke ud mere. Jeg holder det fucking ikke ud mere. Hate mails. SMS'er. Idioter, der taler bag min ryg. Der er jo ikke nogen, der tør konfrontere mig direkte med en skid. I er så fucking modige, når I er på nettet. Mit navn er Medea, og jeg har sikkert hørt om mig. Det meste af det, jeg har hørt, det er fucking bullshit. For jer er det bare et game. Noget at snakke om hen over jeres klamme kaffe. Sidste nyt, årets headliner. Mor dræber sine egne børn og er fuldstændig ligeglad. Jeg elsker den mand. Jeg elsker de to små. Fuck, hvor jeg elsker de to små.
Det tager som regel ikke så lang tid, ofte så det er sådan korte perioder, hvor det sker. Men det er altid ubehageligt, når det starter, man tænker på, hvad hvis det fortsat for evigt, ikke? Så vil det være standard ubehageligt. Ligesom sin tus eller sådan noget, ikke? Og så nogle gange, så kan jeg også, det er mest sådan nogle lyde, jeg kan godt høre lyde rundt omkring, som man tænker måske ikke er der. Men man kan jo ikke være sikker på, at det kan godt være, at der står en eller anden lyd som en elefant ude på gangen, ikke? Men det vil også være mærkeligt. Så tvivlen kommer også, det er sådan tvivlen også nogle gange, sådan, er der egentlig den her lyd, eller er den der ikke? Altså alle ser vel også forskelligt. Altså sansen er vel bare vidt forskellige fra person til person.
Dear patient listener at the Second World Congress of Free Artists, dear gods of teaching, dear free artists, dear free students, dear free Camel Collective. Despite my stutter, I have decided to speak today. Thank you for the invitation. I'll speak slowly because usually it gets worse when I get excited and speak quickly. Situations that do not arise spontaneously make me nervous. I will try to produce speech sounds in order to deliver a few thoughts on art and pedagogy. During the introduction in my video class, I said, I come to this class because I want to learn how to speak. I am speaking today because I was recently reminded of the fact that we all have a voice and we should all use it. Patti Smith reminded me of this. Some speak too much and some not enough. I do not let the words I can't find get in my way. Pieces of word come out of my mouth and splinter. My stammering somehow reminds me of the rhythms of institutions. In our democratic society called Denmark, it is not true that everybody has a voice. We all have the right to express our opinions, but in the end we only listen to the ones who can formulate coherent ideas and present them in an intellectual, loud, rhetorical or sexy way. This problem applies both in the classroom and in public. Through education we can learn socially empowering ways of public expression. Otherwise, in the practice of democracy, we have to learn to be patient with what we could call an insecure, nervous or stammering, incoherent way of expression. I pray to the gods of teaching that we can unlearn this standard of public appearance and allow for hidden voices and faces. Make people who have been silenced by others or themselves speak up. We, the students, are not a pedagogical project. The truth is, if we don't explain to the outside world what it is like to be in the classroom, nothing will change. We, the students, are encouraged to read theory with the focus on how to practice. And when I say read, it is important that we are here aware of the difficulties some students can experience with this activity. It is not a natural thing to be a good or fast reader. Why do we read or talk to begin with? Perhaps to learn how to think? Reading can be disrupted by many psychological and neurologically based phenomena, such as stammering, synesthesia, dyslexia, and many others as yet undiscovered disabilities. It is very hard to study if you are a bad reader or a bad speaker. So please, teachers, be sensitive and do not design an art program which is dominated by written or spoken forms of expressions. One's lack of control over his or her speech, acts, or written statements should not determine a good or bad work. The classroom should allow full expression of the students' personalities and abilities. Education should lead to a public voice. There is a level of acting in There is a level of acting in There is a level of acting in It is a style. Critical pedagogy means teachers and students are allowed to ask, why the hell am I learning this? We are all learners. We are all responsible for constantly challenging authorities. Education should lead to emancipation. We are all different, but we all have the same needs. The classroom should provoke the students and the teachers to challenge what we perceive as given and stimulate innovations, responsiveness, and new solutions. But let me conclude here with a quote from an anonymous voice. To be sensitive is to be critical. Thank you for your patience.
My name is Torsten Bruch, and I'm a video artist, performer, and sculptor. My artistic idea is actually that I put on a costume and I perform in front of a camera with a blue screen. And the big difference is mostly I appear in groups. That means I do a lot of single performances and then I put them together. Like in the work Laurentia, where I play 7 different parts of the movie and I sing together a song. But it kind of appears that it's more like an acting part, so I do a lot of role plays. For example, I tried to be an astronaut, floating in space, like in this work. Or I did a movie, a whole story called Bluebeard, where I play all the different roles. Bluebeard is an ancient king and he falls in love with 7 women, but I used a modern version where one woman is always killing all the other women and at last Bluebeard himself. So I'm falling in love with myself, but I'm also killing all the other parts. And in recent years I became more interested in physical video works. I did not so much just video projections, but more sculptural media installations. Like for example Funasaka Symphony, where I place 5 monitors all around the room, but the work was a collection of video sound pieces from one small town in Japan, and you could hear like the soundscape of the whole town in this symphony that I directed from a high place in the town. So I was like the conductor of the sounds that were made in this town. So, and there's another work, it's called Veggie Dance, and I built a lot of costumes showing different kinds of vegetables. And in that case, the work was for Japan, so it was a mixture of Japanese vegetables and German vegetables. Because there are some vegetables that we have here in Germany, and others they only have in Japan. Another sculptural approach to video art was the work Ping Pong, where I built a lot of small models out of cardboard. I put in video screens, and the idea was to play ping pong from one monitor to the other. My recent work, which is not finished yet, is called Space Station, where I am experimenting with different monitors and also again floating in space that you can see here. Thank you for your attention.
Am I like Austin in some way? Could being the complete opposite of something be considered likeness or sameness? Like the North and South Poles, or midnight and noon? Could we be the opposites of the same phenomena? Austin is a character in one of Ursula Le Guin's sci-fi stories. He has the ability to feel the emotions of any sentient creature around him. Austin and his crew are on a newly discovered planet known as World 4470. The planet is covered in vegetation that later in the story is discovered to be a single, sentient organism. It has never encountered anything else than itself, never had to fear or love another, never been exposed to the other. I wonder how it is to either feel everything or feel nothing. To feel everything you understand, not feel what is out of sight, Empathize with what you can hold. Cry with someone you don't know. I wake up early, water the plants, get lost in my Instagram feed and miss the bus. It's Wednesday, but I couldn't care less.
On my ramble across the Vettel, I experience edges, zones, transitions and loopholes. From a distance, I feel moments of closeness and wonder what needs from a we in this neighborhood. When I go for a walk, I see residents who quietly talk about their everyday lives and their relationships to the places. I see places that tell of negotiation processes and social interfaces, of exchange and working. Who produces space and how, and what power relations are working? Do people live here? What's developing here? Who gets here and who has to go? Is there a room for a we? Is there space for our needs? Is there space for self-determination? Is there space for independence? Is there space for growth? Is there space for creativity? Is there space for lightness? Is there space for air? Is there space for food? Is there space for movement? Is there space for protection? Is there space for rest? Is there space for sleeping? Is there space for accommodation? Is there space for physical contact? Is there space for acceptance? Is there space for appreciation? Is there space for closeness? Is there space for community? Is there space for consideration? Is there space for emotional security? Is there space for empathy? Is there space for respect? Is there space for support? Is there space for connection? Is there space for trust? Is there space for understanding? Is there space for belonging? Is tomorrow's we different?
In 1997, I founded the NGO Ute with some friends, mostly from the art school. Sometimes I thought this could be my social sculpture related to Joseph Beuys. In 2019, I started to do the performance Lift Boy. I am standing in front of the freight lift of the gallery buildings in Admiralitätsstraße, waiting for visitors with mobility restrictions to bring them into the galleries. These are not accessible barrier-free. One more issue is that the starting point of the elevator is 11 steps away from the ground. But I work on it. Maybe a platform lift might help. Before I was allowed to do that, I had to get an individual lift license. The performance is part of the Aktionsplan Barrierefreie Kulturorte Hamburg, Action Plan Barrier-Free Cultural Spots Hamburg, which I started in 2020. I will do the performance until the situation in the gallery house has changed. "11 places should not only be brought in mind, but also should experience fundamental change in relation to barrier freedom." Another field of Ute's work is filmmaking. We started with workshops for children with disabilities. It is better to see films made by people with disabilities than about them. Every year we organize workshops where new films arise. But Ute also produces other films. In Friseurgeschichten, Hairdresser Stories, two people in wheelchairs get a new haircut and talk to their hairdressers. Recorded with 4 wireless microphones and 4 cameras, 2 conversations were witnessed and put into one film.
Vielleicht erstmal vor dem Waschen erklären, wie ich dir die Haare schneiden soll.
Ja, gucken wir erstmal, was du überhaupt haben möchtest.
Wie ich dir die Haare schneiden soll.
Ich würde sagen, so ein 2/3 davon ab. Weißt du das? Und was du möchtest?
Nicht so genau.
Ansonsten
also im
kannst du
Prinzip
dich
finde ich es
kreativ
eigentlich ganz
ausleben.
gut so, aber weiß nicht, vielleicht hast du ja auch.
Ich gucke mir das mal an, ja?
Right now, I work on the subtitles in German and English to make this film easy accessible.
Meistens nach vorne. Ja, meistens nach vorne. Kennenlerngeschichte. Als ich einen Unfall hatte, hatte ich halt nach Leuten gesucht, die sowas machen wie Skaten oder Snowboarden oder so. Und ich habe relativ schnell Videos gefunden von David, der halt in Skateparks Rollstuhl fährt. So, ich habe mich irgendwann mal mit dem getroffen und war in Skateparks Rollstuhl fahren.
Das dann noch so ein bisschen aufbauschen, dann drehen sie total durch.
Komm, Hase, ich nehme das ab. Ja, wobei es vielleicht keine gute Idee ist. Leute sind ja schon so verunsichert, weil sie Rollstuhlfahrer sind. Und dann auch noch Psychologen, Alter. Dann ist ja richtig unsicher. Also dann provoziert man noch mehr Unsicherheit.
Aber manchmal ist es schon auch ganz lustig.
We show the results of our work at the Hollywood Film Day, which we have been organizing for 11 years.
There was a self-definition about contemporary art, modern art in Europe, and in this understanding, art was totally independent and only in the context of the museum fixed to a meaning. But this meaning is now not anymore valuable for every aspect of our contemporary world. And in a globalized world, it's maybe needed to rethink the European-centered concepts of what is art and what is international. The word itself is a problem because it refers the nation as the fixed point. And so we started with a lot of artists from all over the world to discuss this issue. What is possible when we exchange? What can we understand when we come from different global areas, cultural backgrounds, and concepts of art? My name is Michael Kress. I'm one of the guys from Hypercultural Passengers in Hamburg. And we started this project quite a bit ago in I think 2013 already, in an art house, art center in Altona, which is a very nice neighborhood in Hamburg. But since some years we moved to Hamburg Veddel. This is a space, a place in Hamburg, right in the middle of the harbor. And it's a very international, now I use this word again, neighborhood. More than 60 languages are spoken here, and it's very diverse by its dwellers and interests. And the word interest is what we try to focus on. What do we share when we focus and negotiate our common interests? So what are your interests and what are mine? And we are artists, and our neighbors are maybe in very different fields active. And how can we connect? How can we connect if the art is meant to be a language of its own? And how can we exchange when there is not a common language? We just opened this art space in Veddel here last summer, and we finished the renovation of this art space. And we are waiting for the situation to start our international, our global exchange with partners we have in Japan, from Yokohama. We have a partnership with Shanghai, with Busan in South Korea. There is a long-term and very intensive exchange with Groningen, and so we have a lot of Groningen artists here in Hamburg, since it's not so far away, and they come for some weeks work here, and we start projects. And so we hope that this conference is now leading to an exchange with Aarhus, since it's really also a direct neighbor in the north, and so this is hopefully a fruitful starting point. Hypercultural Passengers is a kind of collective. It's bringing artists and philosophers and activists together and trying to work on multidisciplinary approaches. And here you can meet some of our active members from Hamburg, but also from all over the world. So enjoy.
Hi, my name is Salma, and for me, Hypercultural Passengers is a place that connects people with artists or other cultures all around the world. And between these groups of people, it comes to an exchange from which both sides can benefit. Young people and also other people on the Veddel are brought closer to the art world, and I think it's a lot of fun and to work with Hypercultural Passengers, and I really enjoy it a lot.
Hi, my name is Heidi. Hypercultural Passengers to me means pursuing and experiencing actively and passively forms of connections outside the violent identitarian logic of a we which is being constructed against others. So there is for me an important political implication in the work Hypercultural Passengers does.
Hi, my name is Torsten, and for me Hypercultural Passengers is a great way to meet a lot of people, have interesting projects, and to hear about their culture and their artistic ideas.
HiCP is for me connecting people, exchanging through art, culture and language, borderless, anywhere and everywhere.
For me, Hypercultural Passengers is the opportunity to learn more about barriers. Physical barriers like those steps, but also barriers that occur when we try to work with other people. Some barriers only come to visibility when you try to communicate. I hope we will do this in an open, tolerant, authentic, and non-violent, or better, non-hierarchic way.
I see myself as part of a global network that is rhythmically interconnected and constantly in exchange. As hypercultural passenger, I'm constantly in a collective movement, physically and mentally.
And I hope you liked our small introduction of hypercultural passengers. And now we jump into the live conference situation, and we have a panel and we discuss the different ways to understand the activity of artists in the field of the public. Okay, so after seeing these videos now, we start this conversation with projects and artists from Aarhus and Hamburg. And Heidi, please jump in the discussion.
Thank you, Michael. I would like to start with Aysha from the project Andromeda. And I was very interested in the political implications of your artwork you were speaking of, saying that it is a politically loaded area and that you're working with that. And the way I understood it, also working with the projections of otherness being ascribed to you, which I think have a violent implication. So I'm very interested how you reappropriate or own your own positioning outside of those projectional frames.
Yeah, the area is Gellerup and many other areas in Denmark, who are these neighborhoods that has a lot of diverse people who live there, experience a lot of housing politic violence, has been for 10 years. The way we focus a lot about reclaiming or trying to take the narrative ourselves, because we've been, being born and raised in Denmark, as a person in Denmark, they call them either aliens, immigrants, or non-Western descendants, which are quite violent words, I would say. It takes quite a lot of courage to dare to be whatever you feel like being, and that's both with in terms of internalized racism or structural racism. So in the beginning we did experience a lot of when we were making debates or screenings or tours, performances, we did experience a lot of most than resistance. It wasn't seen as extremely, let's say if we did it in town and we were a platform that was in the inner city, it would be different, because then it would be a neutral art space and it would be creative and edgy and so on. But because we are situated in our neighborhood and we are talking about the things we're doing, it's sometimes quite hard. So I don't have a specific toolkit on how to re-everythinging myself, and in the sense of the narrative and the violent discourse or way it is. But I think the way we're doing it, we're always trying to focus on, as we also wrote in the video, what we have around us, and trying to keeping the communities and trying to be as site specific as possible, but also seeing ourselves as part of something else and bigger, in the sense of we are not just minorities in Denmark. Platforms like these are not just exceptional, it's part of something bigger, and art has been something quite big for centuries. For many, it's not a new thing that, let's say, brown people in Gellerup or Aarhus are doing art. It's been in, like, let's say in Babylon, like for the many old civilization it's been. So yeah, I find it, I don't know how to answer it, Heidi, but trying to be as normal about it as possible, not seeing ourselves as, let's say, a gallery or a film club, but more like we're just having an eye to eye with people, and doing that, we notice that people also dare, and we also dare to be ourselves more and more.
Arnar, I was thinking it's interesting now with the new work you have shown on the video, which is very fresh to me, so I can only give you like first impressions, but I thought it was interesting that the figure of Torsten has this, you know, that there is this idea or this fantasy of feeling the emotions of everybody else, like being like a super symbiosis, if you want, like no limits, and which I find scary and a little psychotic at the same time. So I was wondering, I don't even know if this is a clear question, but then somehow this resonated with what you were describing, what a colleague of you was describing in your Institute for X, if I didn't mix it up now, which was the foam theory, to say that you have these bubbles and that the connection between the bubbles is the limits of your, like, where you stop is where the others start, but the stop of yourself, where you end, where the others start, is which connects you. And in a way, I see an opposition between the foam bubble theory and this, I call it super symbiosis of the Torsten figure. And I was wondering, I don't know, I just put it like that. What you want to say something about about this?
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. I mean, yeah, there's certainly some kind of overlap in ideology there, I guess, you know, and it's like what I don't know if you are familiar with this short story by Ursula Le Guin, where she writes this character in, but this character is sort of like can empathize fully with everything that is sentient. So he's sort of ambassador on this mission to an undiscovered planet, only to be able to sense if there is something sentient on this planet. But then it sort of becomes a really interesting dialogue between him and that sort of organism. This, where you start and something else begins, is also like flowing through that piece about learning how to walk in a forest but slowly, which sort of happens in that area between like the virtual, the digital entities, and then the physical bodies that perhaps they represent or not. And it's sort of like on the ecotone between those two areas. And it is like, I think it may be also really well described by Astrida Neymanis. I don't know if you're familiar with her work on hydrofeminism. It's sort of like, it also talks a lot about this where something stops and something else begins. And I actually saw that also in sort of some of your works, like that was presented here to us. This idea of water, or like being sort of liquid or watery bodies of water, and how looking at us and everything else as part of like a sort of a water network, how that can help us illustrate a bit better like where one body starts and something else begins. Because he talks about this being the idea that that our bodies, they only kind of exist because we resist the flow of water for like a period of time that we call the physical life of our human bodies. So we sort of like resist the idea of like just flowing out to the ocean, you know, and that resistance is our body. But the water that flows through us by us drinking the water and then pissing it out or sweating it out or whatever, and that flow is sort of just, you know, going through everything and everyone. And she suggests that we should not ask the question what is, but where, when is, that those being way more interesting questions, because what is, it is sort of reducing the object to its presence, while the past and the future are inherently sort of connected to that thing in that sort of flow of things. But she did write something about. Sorry if I'm sort of. I'll wrap this up quickly, But she writes in the beginning of her text, to think embodiment as watery belies the understanding of bodies that we have inherited from the dominant Western metaphysical tradition. As watery, we experience ourselves less as isolated entities and more as oceanic eddies. So like, that almost suggesting that the current state of a human body is just sort of like the illusion of, a solid state, just like you have some kind of a isolated current in a river or something that seems to be apart from the river, but it just sort of like happens to be there at that point in time, and then just sort of continues into the rest of the river. And I find that really a really nice metaphor to think about us, like in this world, and these like this foam thing as well. And also we saw that in Louise's video, which I thought was really beautiful, like blowing these bubbles, because then she was also literally creating bodies from her own breath. So that sort of like grew and then popped and then, sort of kept going, So that was also like somehow really illustrating this hydrofeminist like construct of like how our bodies are not unique, but sort of connected. And the resistance that we have for that flow is what makes us unique in time, I think. I don't know. Maybe that was also not an answer in the same way that you did not ask a question, but
that's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you. Maybe as you mentioned, Louise, I think that would be a nice bridge if you want, Louise, because I was thinking talking about this liquid entities, and rather than say what is, to say when. There is this quote by Nelson Goodman who said maybe the question what is art is the wrong question. Maybe you should ask when is art. You can even ask yourself, when am I someone, and this is changing. And that might have to do, or one way in which this expresses might be our voices, which are fluid. And we could talk hours about voices, and I for sure am not going to talk about now, but I was very interested, Louise, well, in many of you, the voice has an important role, I think, but maybe speaking about talking to you, Louise, I was interested also having like in the background this idea of community and we, and which is like the topic of our conference. I was wondering in your work how you see the connection between violence and humor. Humor etymologically is liquid too. That's just something coincidence now. But I was especially thinking about the work, the Philomela work, which I saw when you did it with the tongue, and to me it has to do a lot with violence, but humor as well, with an empowerment, but also with the history, the mythology behind is that they cut off her tongue, so it's, and as a woman, so there's also that aspect, that feminist aspect. But yes, would you like to say something about that?
I can try, at least. The connection between violence and humor.
Or just say what you, I don't want to narrow it down, sorry, maybe just say what comes up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like two of like being a human. I think we all kind of know violence in a way, or experience violence to some degree, I think. And it has been like a part of human civilization since forever. But I don't know when humor started. That's like an interesting... Then I guess we have to like go back to like more like on human consciousness and yeah. What is the connection? It's a bit difficult.
do you see humor as something? Does humor help you, or is it for you a way, a means of working in your art? I find it in your work. I think humor well done is very serious. It's not like haha funny. It's and I was wondering what that is for you.
Yeah, I think what interests me, or what is so fascinating about human beings in general, and humans being a part of a collective, like we are all like super intertwined into each other, yeah, if we want it or not. And I think the capacity that we have of like staying alive and adapting and being like keeping up, even though things are super hard. I think humor must be like really important aspect to this, that you can kind of like step out of yourself and see things in a from that perspective, like not getting insane and all the crazy things happening. Yeah, I think that's like a matter of survival in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like a really interesting. How do you say? Yeah. How do I say? Yeah, that people that you're able to do that as a human being, it kind of makes you capable of surviving in communities. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but it sounds super negative when I say this. Like it's like really beautiful, and it's like I don't know if we need violence. I don't think we need that necessarily, but yeah. We need to live with violence in some ways, even though we might not see it in our everyday life. It's like it's always there. Violence is always there somewhere.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Maybe I have a question for Kim. What's interesting for me, you're running this Spanian space in many decades now, different places. How has the role of the artist and also of telling the story of artists changed in the last decades? So is the role now different? Are we now in a creative city society, or what is your feeling?
Actually, it's been the same space all the time. I think I really don't know, because it's like it seems like the artist is used a lot when they develop cities in Denmark right now, and I know there's been a discussion in Hamburg as well about this when you make new parts of the city, and you use the artist for a while, and then when you sold everything and everything is made into an economy, then you leave the artists to themselves, and that's more or less our experience. And compared to that, it's another kind of violence that I think we're experiencing is the economic violence in society, more or less, and it's like it's always talked about in a way that it's not violence. It's just up to you how to fix everything. And we as an artist, I don't know, in positive situations, you have this like you are part of a group, and I really recognize a lot of this Arnar is talking about also. And every day I go to my workshop, I go through the woods, and I in the autumn there's a lot of mushrooms and fungi, and then I started finding out that underneath the earth and in the woods there's intertwined all the the fungus are actually running the woods in secret, and everything is connected, but you don't see it. So all these intertwining of people, I think it's similar, and in that way also the humor is a deeply serious thing, but it's also a way of getting through violence, getting or stop violence, and because everything is getting too much. I don't know, the role of artists is when it's positive, we are going to connect better with society, but we still have this problem that everything is supposed to be working for free. I don't know if that's...
That is an interesting point you brought up. So you say there's a soil and the connection, maybe the artist or the artworks, the builder of the soil and the connection. And I think that the word is ribosome. I don't know if this is English, but so maybe this, what we do is not always visible at the first sight, but it's there, and yeah, we are used by society, and maybe sometimes not in a nice way. So
no,
Heidi,
but still art will have this possibility of connecting, and even like Aysha was also talking about this strangeness working in this area, and some kind of reaction you can always also experience at some places when you go in the countryside of Denmark or some other cities where this language is not part of everyday life, so people are reacting, so you need like time to get into some kind of positive conversation. I don't have but still it's like, because I experience a lot of, sometimes when people are coming and afterwards meet people years after, they still remember art pieces. So it's doing something with their subconscious in one way or another. So art is working, I think.
Okay, I had a question for Ditte now, and maybe we can come back to this idea of the mushrooms and of the rhizomes in a minute. But for Ditte, I was thinking it was interesting in your work, the work you have presented for us today, that the voice also plays a big role, humor maybe too. But I was thinking in this, enactment of stuttering, how failure is something connecting people, the failure of saying something. In one point he says, raising my voice, which is my voice, when is it mine? Do I maybe connect better when I stutter? Or so I was thinking about the connection between failure and connection. Would you like to say something about that?
Yes, I can try also. That's an interesting how to say, experience of the piece, or an interesting word to use, failure, I think, because it inspires me to think of that it is like the taboos or the failures or the insecurities in the unspoken stories and the voiceless that maybe is a nice way to connect, or that opens up for connection when we dares and when we share and when we open up in a public for these so we come out of the hide, so we don't hide and try to be perfect. So, and the reason why I chose to share this work is because I'm thinking of like how the public space are defined and how the public space also represent the we somehow, and how to perform in the space and how to take part as an artist in this democratic society, and how it maybe begins in the classroom, which is an institution, the power relations that happens in the classroom.
Yes.
And the definition and the perception of art as an artist. And so the reason why I came to think of this, oh, my phone is calling. How do I stop it? Yeah, so this one piece that I shared was made for the Second World Congress of Free Artists, which was inspired by the Escalon Congress in 1956, where he's asking how we as artists take part in society, and let me think. Now I forgot what to say. Sorry about this.
Oh, well, that fits.
It was the phone.
Quite well. Yes.
Yeah. So then it is also a different type of conference. So we were invited as artists to write a speech and then and then an actor was performing it. So it was the same thing for all 30 artists that was part of this conference. And that was an interesting way to deliver like a message. And then it was inspired by this student that I had once that admitted that she was in my class because she wanted to learn how to speak. And I thought that was an interesting perspective of art education, you know, when what the role of language and the role of written and spoken words. And then it's connected to a recent piece that I did also in an artist-run space here in Aarhus that I call It Cannot Only Be Me, which is also about fear of speaking in public. And yeah, so that was it.
There is a hand from Chrisdian.
Yes, I was wondering when I saw the piece Ditte, that it's a strange thing that you kind of had to use a stutterer, and how much he should stutter that the piece became real, but how less he should stutter until I would not suffer in midlight or feeling with him. It was kind of strange that it was necessary that the person had to stutter, even if I think the person himself would like not to stutter. That was kind of ambivalent Spannung, tension inside this.
Yeah.
So you were looking for a stuttering actor, or how did you find the person, or no?
The person was he's an actor, so he wasn't a real stutter, because the conference was it's a fake stutter.
It was fake stutter.
Yeah,
wow,
totally.
He was good.
Yeah, it was like this. Yeah, and it was
fake suffering.
Yeah, it was performing like a different delivery of speech, or
Okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe Chrisdian, now that you already got into the conversation, maybe I can continue with you, because I was thinking, now that we are talking about being disabled, being made disabled by others, what does it mean? I was thinking in your work, what I find really interesting is, I was thinking, it would interest me to hear what you think about the relation between society and shame, and maybe how community, because you speak a lot about barrier-free, the barriers and being free of the barriers, how making it barrier-free might also be a form of unshaming those excluded. I don't know, but anyway, like, do you see a connection? Are you interested in the concept of shame shame and art, shame and community?
I don't think so. Society and shame, no. Sometimes I feel people should feel shame if you address them, hey, your building is not accessible, and they don't react. But I don't like that concept because it makes the other person feeling bad. And I don't think you can get nowhere with the force of making other people feeling bad or feeling ashamed. Maybe it's a kind of short-term win. You feel moralistic, great or whatever, and the other person is low because he or she should do something. But I'm not interested in shame. No, I don't think so. Maybe, but how do you? Where do you find the shame?
No, that was a misunderstanding. I meant that I think there is a lot of body shaming going on in society. I didn't mean that you would do that. I meant that I said something like unshaming, that that we get sensitized by. I think there is a lot of shame in society. I don't like shame at all. I think you got me wrong there, but I saw like as if your work was doing something against shame for bodies in our society.
Maybe I did, but I don't know. That was not the intention.
Okay.
I think my starting point is just more practical, and to give opportunities to people that they won't have without a ramp or whatever. And body shame is maybe if you feel ashamed, even which kind of body you have, it's not a fun feeling.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you. Okay. Maybe getting back to the aspect of space you were talking about, different people were talking about. I was thinking Finn and Julius, when we met last year and you talked about your project, Archipel, and also in your video, you spoke a lot about this interesting intersection between inclusion and who belongs to the archipel and how you work that through, and who defines who is part of that we. And you said something, I think in the video, that the limits are like blurry, or in the beginning you said something like the limits of the where is part of the we and not is blurry. And would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, it was also really resonating what Arnar was saying about the water and the bubbles and the intersection between, like, where do I stop, where does the group start. And so I think this project, it's an experiment. It's been an experimental field for like 5 years, and it's an open question to us, and there are many different layers to it, like psychological layers of like, what space do I need, what space does the other person need, and sociological layers and political layers. I think there's a political potential in acknowledging that we have shared interest, and to come up with concepts of a we that is fluid. In this video we are asking the question, are we water? And so I find this very interesting, and I think like once you make the we solid, once you define who exactly is it, it loses a potential of this proclamation that, you know, together we can do really quite a lot of things, and we can really change things. And I think individually we can't.
By the way, who wrote that text? Did you write it together? The text for the video?
Yes, we.
Oh, Julius.
It was a process. Finn and me had been working on a collection of thoughts over the last 10 days or something. And in the end, I directed it with my loving partner, Jessica, who was also the narrator.
Okay, thank you. maybe talking about the blurry lines of a we and the others. Torsten, if you would like to say something about your artwork, I was thinking it's so interesting that you fall in love in like Blaubart with yourself, but then you kill yourself and you have like those different parts of you. And I was wondering, maybe that's one question specifically I was wondering about, is there something, are you thinking about also different aspects of maleness, like what that is to you, being male? Is it like a multiplication of, it's just one aspect I was wondering about.
Well, I think to me, I think there is no really fixed concept of male. I mean, there's so many different things, you know. There's like the classical male thing, like strong, you know, drinks beer and has a fast car, you know, but those are stereotypes. I think there's like a whiny male, and there's like a very strong male, and they're like all from black to white, all kinds of parts, you know. So I think, you know, I'm not so much focused on that term. Is more like let's try out an idea and see what is happening with it. It's always also a process. I'm not so much filling out a plan when I do these works. There are many things that happen from the idea until the finished work. So because it yeah, there's also, how can I say that, it's it follows more a belly feeling approach to what feels right, than more brain kind of fixed concept that has to be fulfilled. I don't know if that explains what you wanted to know. But there's one other thing, because, you know, we were talking about individuals, the I and the group, the we, and since in many works I'm only appearing in the work, but not as a single individual, because I found out if I do the same thing like 10 times again, it's changing within time, and it's also, I have different feelings, and it's not always the same thing. If you ask a dancer to do that, he can perform 10 times the same thing because he's so crazily trained to do a same thing again. But for me, when I do that with a little bit more feeling and some weaknesses, because I'm not a good dancer, or, you know, sometimes I'm clumsy, or there are lots of changes happening. So I think we all have this group also in us.
Maybe to conclude this round, Michael, I would ask you, because at the beginning you said that you said something about your biography, about your artistic biography, and said that you still feel like a visitor in art. And I think that nicely connects to the idea of hypercultural passengers, which you came up with. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you want to say something about that. Also, I was wondering, if you are the visitor, who's the host? Or is there a host? Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I actually have no answer, because I always struggle the whole time about what is identity, and so my main problem in my life was that I'm not able to read and write proper, and so I decided very early to go with my worst ability, and so I tried to read and write in my artwork, and this brings you always in context of different words and meanings, and the context is referred to a discussion in philosophy, in art, in music, and so on. So always jumping in and out is maybe a bad answer for being not familiar with the situation, but it's also a possibility to try to connect things who are interesting. And I really like the way Hannah Arendt explained in the interview with Gauss the word interest. She talks about interesses, so between me and something. And this something is sometimes an object, and then I'm the subject, or sometimes the other is the object from my point of view. So this changing and not understanding art as identity or culture as identity, more like a source I can use, I can try out, I can taste. This is maybe what I try in this project, or also in my individual artworks, who are just like more or less a private, but also a public approach. Yeah, maybe we can use the rest of this conversation for open the stage for everybody to ask questions. And I don't know how long we will share the screen together. So, Ditte, please.
Well, I just want to say a few comments and then one question. Like, I really enjoyed your videos. It was really nice to see Aarhus from a different way, from Gellerup, really beautiful pictures. And Benjamin and Sally, really nice videos from the whole harbor area. It was really nice to see this flow, like in my own city. And really nice narration from Jessica. Since I met her, it was really beautiful. And also Heidi, I really like your ideas of doubting and how it connects people. I think I agree with this. It's very inspiring. And it was also when I met you back in August.
Thank you. Likewise.
And really, and I when I saw the videos, it was like, am I in Hamburg or I'm in Aarhus? I feel there was a blend, like aesthetically and with the architecture and the way that you have approached it with music and the flow of the camera. And so it was really nice that you just to see one video after the other without, sometimes I didn't really know who am I watching now. So that was really sweet, and maybe connects to the whole flow and liquid idea that has come up a little bit today. But then I noticed one thing, which was also, since I know Institute for X, I noticed now when I saw it on video, there's a overrepresentation of men somehow. And maybe also in Gängeviertel, and maybe also in Archipel, and maybe like, are there something specific to this DIY self-organization that are linked to the male figure? Or at least there were somehow an overrepresentation of men somehow. So if anyone noticed that also, or could comment on this, it could be interesting.
Aysha, you want to say?
Yeah, it's just, yeah, good observation or question, Ditte, because I don't think it's linked to men. I think the male-raised people, they are more, how do you say, like, to do DIY, you have to be confident and you have to feel like I can just do what I want. Whereas woman raised as a woman, you are very like, be careful, be modest, blah, 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 don't, all of that, right? So I think it's in the sense of like pedagogy, or like how we are raising people. I hope that there will be more women in DIY scenes, but I also noticed that it has very much been male representing. And with Andromeda, we also we are focusing very much on like trying to like both decenter and also like go away from the norms or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to comment that I think it's part of the how they are raised up, or how you have to dare to do DIY, and who dares the most in the past, right? I think now we will see more diverse DIYs, actual diverse DIYs.
Mm.
Yeah.
But also how they claim to be open, but then in a certain way, maybe.
Anna, you wanted to say something?
There was also Julius and with the hand, and Louise.
Arnar first.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like, speaking from the point of view, like, having been part of X for many years, I mean, it's definitely evident that, like, you know, that it has been, like, overwhelmingly sort of, like, populated with sort of, like, you know, the male gaze, right? I know, like, and it's I also really remember that when I was running the artist residency program there, like, every time I would invite like a female artist who would come, they would always, like, notice this immediately. You know, they would just sort of point out, like, wow, okay, this is just like a lot of dudes, right? I cannot really speak to sort of the operation as it is today, because it has been going through so many sort of changes just in the last couple of months or last few months. But I mean, yeah, it is definitely incredibly evident and sort of like a shame that this is not a better handled sort of issue, definitely. But yeah, that was just what I was like.
Very right. So to make that remark, Ditte, thank you very much for pointing that out. And I very much agree to what you said, Aysha. We on the archipelago had a lot of discussions about it. Unfortunately, building these islands was a lot of work, so that you needed a lot of self-confidence in picking up a tool and building something. So we have realized that most female actors around the scene have been taking part in nourishing and caring about the space, which we tried to address, but faced more and more difficulties as we have developed the whole project into a vast construction site that was basically manned by male people who are, as some of us have put it, the doer decides, which is a very violent claim to make, because the doer usually is someone who has no restraints and no doubts or less doubts about himself usually. So we have been trying to keep the balance, well, hardly so, between being open, but that also gave a lot of way and advantages, I think, to people who took it as an open space instead of, whereas I could see that female or insecure characters wouldn't just dare to approach the scene in the same way as somebody just enters the scene like, oh, I can just do this. Whereas other people are more careful and wait for approval from the group.
Louise, you wanted to say, and then Kim maybe.
Yeah. Like representing Gängeviertel, I have to say that one thing that makes me really proud of Gängeviertel is that a lot of the public spokespeople are actually women, and I think it has been like a really important part of like the thing is when you have people the face to the outside, when you have like a mixed group of people that like not just male people but also female people and maybe people that don't identify with male or female or non-binary, then it also attracts other people, of course, like other people who are not like male. And I think another aspect which is really important in Gängeviertel is like that we really try to find ways of like how do we make decisions in Gängeviertel. Like the main decision organ is the weekly assembly that has been like we still have this weekly assembly since the last 12
years, and we really try to structure it in a way that it's not just like the loudest people are able to speak, but like really like having a moderation every time, because in the beginning it was like a lot, but like the loudest people speak, and it was really dominated by dominating people who are really like self-secure, and a lot of people left the project because of this, like not being able to have a voice. But like, yeah, so this like system of like, how do we meet, how do we make decisions, what was extremely important, like to have the people who are a little bit more quiet, to have them raise their hand. And that's like a part of the reason why I still like to be a part of this place, because I'm maybe more one of the people that listen before they speak, and not like with the elbows first, kind of.
I was just thinking, because now we've been running our space for so many years, and I can see the change that we have, like a lot of open calls, and it's more and more women coming and taking initiative. Actually, Louise was just coming with one of her projects. It's one of the first, I think, and that was actually outside any open call, and it's getting more and more women come exhibition in the space compared to when we started. So I think it's part of the time that before it was typical male, and it was starting, a lot of this DIY thing comes from the 80s, where it came from a lot of music, and there was rock and roll, and there was a lot of male and male attitudes, even though there had been things like Bowie and where this crossover started more or less. But I think it's not until now, even if the punk scene also has more female artists than before, it's not until now it's starting to change more or less, more dramatic, this thing, because the discussion has been opening up, more focused on gender, and giving this a voice to other people than just the males. I don't know if that's...
Well, I think these thanks, it was really nice answers and comments also, but I think these videos that we have just seen today, they are very present, and I think they are evidence of how the dominant representation and aesthetically. So I think it's something we can always think about, all of us, how we represent these spaces also towards the city and visually and on websites and so forth, because we know that visual representation have an impact of who is coming next and who feels welcome and who is taking the new initiative or who is opening a new space. Or so in that sense, I think it can be important.
For me, it was always very interesting to think about the concept of the artist. So the role model we learned from the last centuries or decades. So it was always a male artist, a genius artist, and but this changed a little bit in many aspects, since a lot of artists now started to be more transdisciplinary in their approaches, and that means also that their professional skills are going down a little bit, since the computer, the machine is doing the work, the photo, the nice drawing and so on. But it's more about the habit. So where do I put myself in the definition of a social context? And this is maybe the chance to really think about emancipation. We talked about male and female in art now, or in art spaces, DIY you call it. But it's also about neighborhoods like Veddel, and also what Aysha showed us, where we have people from all around the globe bringing their idea, their cultural sources. And I think we are on the starting point, and the crisis now, the COVID crisis, is now showing an idea what a fair we could be if we just think about how we share our medicine power to the world. It's not existing. How Europe is performing, how the states are performing. So there are many questions I have in mind right now. And the last point was like a quote I learned in the museum in Washington, in the Museum for Afro-American History. And it was by Søren Kierkegaard. So it's a guy from your country. And actually, I never found this quote, but they used this quote on the wall, and it says, "Once you label me, you negate me." And so I think this quote gives us a vision of beyond emancipation, beyond of discrimination, and beyond of social unfairness. And yeah, that's maybe a big hope I still have. But I'm sure it's a dream. So yeah.
I think this has been a great start. I mean, we will continue from here on. I feel like this is not over.
Yes.
Totally agree. I think this was super nice, and I also feel like the conversation is like kind of just about to, like, just starting. You know, like I feel like we definitely go on for like 4 more hours listening to you converse these topics, but logistically speaking, maybe not. So I would definitely like to continue this.
Yes, super nice. I hope we can meet in real life.
Yes.
And have a party.
But also maybe, I think now maybe the heads are full and the minds also, but we can also have a Zoom meeting without calling it a conference, and where nobody is forced to be, but maybe we just try to make an arrangement maybe in 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever, and then we can build on that we just started, because I think right now, even if it's nice, it's also nice to end.
Yeah, I think so. It was a nice start, and like we scraped the surface of some really good topics, and I was really surprised how many dealt subjects we have. So I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for arranging it. And thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thanks, Michael and HICP. Great initiative.
Aysha, you want to add something?
I also think it is just the start. Like the conversation can get way deeper, and it is very much just like a scraping the surface, I would say, because it's just such a complex and as Arnar said, like logistically, I also wouldn't. Oh, even my computer is like, charge your computer now. But I have so many things in my head. Like regarding also the thing you mentioned, Michael, like even looking at the global, like the politics, and for me, it's also about like who. Just a second, sorry. Yeah, for me personally, it's also a very like hard thing, because like art has been very exclusive when you're from so-called these neighborhoods that are being looked at very negatively politically, because it's not the right people who lives in them. So now also like kind of taking that space in art is very I think it's very important, because it has a lot of tools we can use and to get closer and to communicate things and so on. But it's definitely also like there's so many aspects, and it's so complex and so many nuances that has to be looked at, in my opinion, when working with it, because it is again, as I mentioned earlier, like it is something that has existed for civilizations so long ago, but like only recently it has become a Western phenomena, that it is something, you know, like I would say like exclusive at times. So how do we work with art without how do you say, without videreføre, without taking it on, the bad habits and practices? Those are things that I really think a lot about, but it's also like it can go for many hours if I start. But yeah, I would yeah, thanks a lot for like opening these conversations, because they're quite important, I would say, yeah, and a lot of interesting people.
So
Yes,
maybe this was the last word we had today, and I have to thank everybody of you to take part in our.
I think Julius is still wanting to say something.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
So picking up what Kim, you said earlier about the artists being used, and what you, Michael, said in response to that. Finn and me recently had conversations about projects that Archipel was part of, where I was not part of yet. And we looked at places where the Archipel did residencies abroad, and we realized that these spaces, they had not been maintained in a way that we felt it was supporting the thought of creating autonomous spaces for people to partake in. But instead we saw what Kim, you said earlier, that cities had ventured out and taken over, assimilated these spaces. So I think this conversation that we are having now is just starting, like I can only repeat. And I'm very happy about the assembly of different ideas that I find very like-minded at first glance. And I'm happy to find counterbalances or thought-provoking ideas, because I think this can especially only be thought globally. If, like, I hope what came across in our video is the thought of, or the worry, how can we immunize the things that we build and make sure that they are remaining in the hands of people that we trust.
Anyone else? Okay, so now I'll just make the final remark. This was only possible with your help, and also with the discussion we had before with each one, single, with telephone calls or Zooms or whatever. And yeah, and Ditte brought most of us together. So thank you so much, Ditte. And I got the connection with Ditte by Sixten Terkilsen, who is an artist I know from the Agenda 2002 already. So there is now the possibility to start something with Aarhus and Hamburg. And I hope we can continue this and the idea of meeting on Zooms together to work on projects and then try to make them possible and real. And yeah, normally now it's the time for having good Danish beer or Hamburg beer. So cheers, skål, my friends, and thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Meeting you.
Bye bye.
Bye, thank you.